Germany today is exerting an enormous pressure on other countries to get away with almost every rude behavior. Today there are few publications on this matter. To assess how Germany today is fighting for world domination, we can have a look at how Germany had done this before. It's astonishing how publications from the time of World War I and World War II describe patterns of operation recognizable in today's Germans abroad. One very interesting book is Sabotage, the Secret War Against America, written in 1942 by Michael Sayers and Albert Kahn. Let's see how Germans interfered with and manipulated the US society and economy when Germany already had occupied large parts of Europe. Germans openly sabotaged production while making propaganda for the Third Reich. On page 48 we read, while armed guards were patrolling the outside of the liquidometer plant to prevent entry of spies and saboteurs, the Nazi Bundists were actually hampering production inside the plant. The first-class machinist Julius Weber, who served on a German minesweeper during World War I, was publicly giving the Nazi salute and telling his fellow workers, "Hitler is the greatest man in the world." The department supervisor, John Blazer, was telling the 15 men working under him, "Don't worry about production so much." And he was spreading pro-Hitler, anti-American propaganda. The foreman, Josef Falzer, sat under a red, white and blue poster which proclaimed, "Time is short," reading a German newspaper during working hours. On March 20, 1942, when 2 men were assigned to Falzer's department and were waiting to be put to work, Falzer said, "Let them wait, I have all day." Certain vital plane parts produced at the liquidometer plant under these conditions were later found to be defective, although stamped with the official naval stamp, which is used to indicate the product is in good working order. Similar conditions prevailed at the Brewster Aeronautical Plant, where Bundists openly hailed Hitler, wandered around the department chatting in German during working hours, and did everything they could to slow down production. On April 20, 1942, the United States Navy was forced to take over the 4 Brewster plants, which had failed to deliver a single plane to the United States Armed Forces. 5 supervisory employees and 27 other workers were discharged after federal authorities had investigated their pro-Axis records. Today Germans are similarly untrustworthy. Germans abroad, as a matter of fact, only are loyal to their Deutschland. One reason is that Germans not being seen as reliable with regard to the German cause are not allowed to live abroad. As they said in former East Germany, they are no Reisekader. I had been tortured several times and in several countries by officials of the German Bundesnachrichtendienst, which is the renamed Third Reich Gestapo. The aim was to force me back to Germany. And I know of many other cases, some of which I have witnessed myself. You may well expect every German abroad to be there by order of the administration of his German state. Of course, operations abroad organized by the administration of the German state often are less obvious. The aim is to secretly gain influence, drain money from abroad, or, if this is not possible, to hinder or distract the target. One such operation is described in the book Sabotage on page 56. Most of the cartel agreements were formed between American and German firms long before Hitler came to power. The cartel, which made possible the Nazi sabotage of American production of military optical instruments, was formed back in 1921 between Bausch & Lomb Optical Company of Rochester, New York, and Carl Zeiss of Jena, Germany. The agreement gave Bausch & Lomb the American monopoly rights on patents for the production of such vital war items as bomb sights, rangefinders, periscopes, altimeters, torpedo directors, gun sights and telescopes. But the agreement also stipulated that Bausch & Lomb's military department was to be headed by a person acceptable to the Germans. Bausch & Lomb was to pay royalties to the Germans on all military optical goods, including sales to the United States government. These arrangements enabled the Nazis, when they came to power in Germany, to determine what the United States Army and Navy were buying in the way of military optical instruments. The Nazis also had a controlling influence in American production. When the British and French government tried to order 1.5 million worth of rangefinders and other instruments from Bausch & Lomb in 1935, the American company turned down the orders. The United States Department of Justice, when it acted to break the cartel in 1940, found that these agreements with the Nazis had prevented the United States from building up a military optical industry with sufficient plans and skilled men to meet the war emergency. As we have seen, a little bit of influence at the right place may be able to cause big negative effects. Germany even had a chemical plant in Baton Rouge completely destroyed immediately after the outbreak of World War II, to prevent the production of chemicals used in war production. How was this done? German saboteurs blowing up the plant? An air raid using Latin American airfields? Or hydroplanes having been refueled by German U-boats somewhere in the Caribbean? Let's see page 59 of the book Sabotage. It was destroyed by order of the German IG Farben company, being the joint partner of Standard Oil. Back in 1930, Standard Oil of New Jersey and the German trust IG Farben Industrie organized a chemical company in America called Jasco Incorporated, which was to develop and exploit new processes for making chemical products out of natural and refinery gases. Although this joint enterprise was ostensibly a partnership, it was in fact under German control. Jasco built a plant at Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and as a result of joint German-American experimentation, a new process of making acetylene was developed. Acetylene is a component of acetyl acid used as a raw material in making crayons, plastics, film, paints, varnishes, pharmaceuticals and dyestuffs. The new process resulted in what Standard regarded as the cheapest and best product in the world. Under German orders, the experimentation at Baton Rouge was discontinued in 1935 and all further work was carried on in Germany. The American company was not even kept informed of subsequent improvements, and it was prohibited from conducting further experiments here. On September 6, 1939, immediately after the outbreak of war in Europe, the Germans ordered Standard to dismantle the plant at Baton Rouge. Standard tried vainly to get IG Farben Industries' consent to make a variety of different products at Baton Rouge, but the Germans refused, and the plant was dismantled. The German government, through IG Farben, was undoubtedly anxious to facilitate the destruction of any plant in the United States which might be useful in war production. An official of the United States Department of Justice told the Senate Patents Committee in 1942, commenting on this typical example of Nazi economic sabotage in America. Page 105 describes another possibility to sabotage the economy of an enemy or competitor. Early in 1942, 8 American merchant ships, bound for Soviet Russia and heavily loaded with war supplies vital to the Red Army, suffered strange and similar fates. No one of the ships reached its destination. 3 of them foundered on the high seas. 4 limped back into the ports from which they had set out, and 1 crippled ship was torpedoed as it struggled to return to port. Thousands of tons of munitions, airplane parts, tanks, guns and other war material went down with the ship that sank. 17 seamen lost their life. This of course aroused suspicion and caused an investigation. On March 26, 1942, Joseph Curran, president of the National Maritime Union, appeared before a special hearing in Washington of the House Committee on the Merchant Marine and Fisheries. He presented to the committee the findings of the investigation which had been conducted by his union. We have supporting affidavits of men who were on these ships, he continued. And these ships were all loaded by a particular company, a stevedoring company, that there is a great deal of discussion about around in various circles. And I understand there is interest in the Department of Justice in it. I understand that the owner of that stevedoring company was supposed to have been interned in the last war as a dangerous alien. We do not say anything about the company, but 7 ships loaded by the same company, bound for the same destination, were lost right in succession, and certainly there is something wrong. At the time of writing, the mystery of the 8 ships remains officially unexplained. As we see, a cleverly conducted sabotage often may pass unnoticed. Even if sabotage obviously was done, it's often difficult to prove this fact. And it is even more difficult to be able to blame a person or organization. Another case of sabotaging the United States economy is described on page 116 of the book Sabotage. On the last day of April, forest fires broke out in a dozen different places in a 50-mile area in Rhode Island. Governor J. Howard McGrath said the fires were the worst in the history of the state. He proclaimed martial law in 3 towns and in sections of 3 others. A firefighting force of more than 3,000 soldiers, sailors, and fire service wardens sought to bring the flames under control. James R. Simmons, district supervisor of the Department of Agriculture Forest Service, commented on the suspicious origin of some 15 small fires discovered in an area including lumber yards where 1.75 million feet of lumber intended for defense production were stored. It seems strange to me, said Simmons, that 15 fires should suddenly spring up where the United States government has so much lumber stored. On the same day the Rhode Island fire started, 2 big forest fires broke out in Connecticut, near the town of Sterling. And near Keene, New Hampshire, state police reported finding a small balloon to which was fastened a paperback containing a candle that had burned out. In World War I, the Germans called this sabotage device the Zeppelinit.